Hello and welcome to the Commander's Quarters, your Magic the Gathering source that helps you command your budget. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCGplayer affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all their support. And also, the Pigs Playing Magic Kickstarter has launched, so make sure you check that out. The Kickstarter campaign is going to last for 30 days, and after that, the playmat will no longer be available for purchase. Hey everyone, Mitch coming in from the Commander's Quarters studio. Welcome to the show. So, on today's episode, I've got a $50 deck tech for you, built around perhaps the cutest, most awesomest, most bestest, those are words, right? Commander of all time. So yeah, let's jump into it. So the ground rules for my deck techs are as follows. The budget is $50 or less, and that's an overall deck cost. So that cost includes shipping as well as commanders as long as they're $10 or less, but basic lands will not be included in that price. On my deck techs, I'm going to take you through the strategy, the tactics, and how the deck wins. So today's episode is actually a patron-selected deck tech. Once a month, patrons vote on what commander that they'd like to see in an upcoming episode. The commander that gets the most votes wins. And the commander that they chose was Rin and Seri Inseparable. But to spice things up, I'm adding in Kaheera the Orphan Guard as the companion. Because that's right, today's deck is gonna be Cat Tribal. So hey all you cool cats and kittens, here we go. Rin and Seri Inseparable is a 4/4 dog cat that costs 1 red, green, white. It says whenever you cast a dog spell, create a 1/1 green cat creature token. Whenever you cast a cat spell, create a 1/1 white dog creature token. And by paying red, green, white, and tapping Rin and Seri, it deals damage to any target equal to the number of dogs you control, and you gain life equal to the number of cats that you control. A quick note that this commander's cost is currently well over $10, so the cost is excluded from this deck tech. And that Kaheera the Orphan Guard is a 3/2 cat beast with vigilance that costs 1 Selesnya. Its companion cost is that each creature card in your starting deck is a cat, elemental, nightmare, dinosaur, or beast card. It also says each other creature you control, it's a cat, elemental, nightmare, dinosaur, or beast gets +1/+1 and has vigilance. So Rin and Seri can actually be taken in a couple of different directions, but the reason that I pick cats is that it's a more established tribe. I don't personally prefer cats to dogs. In fact, I do have an adorable dog named Bentley that you might have seen in an episode or two. There are just more cats to choose from in Magic, and many of them are more powerful than the dogs. And because we're going all in on cats, we've got access to Kaheera as our companion, which can really come in handy as well. So our strategy for this deck is incredibly straightforward. We're just going to cast cats and make dogs. Again, the more cats that we cast, the more dog tokens that we make, and yeah, that's the plan. And then how we win with this deck is pretty straightforward. We're going to run over our opponents with our adorable army. Again, Kaheera can help our cats, but we also have other anthems as well. As always, though, I'm going to take you through 10 different tactics that show you how this deck works and how we're going to win with it. So let's start things off with tactic number 1, Fetch. First up, there's Wayfarer's Bauble, which we can pay 2 and tap and sacrifice to get a basic land into play tapped. Next up, there's Font of Fertility, which we can pay 1 into green and sacrifice it to get a basic land into play tapped. And then there's Search for Tomorrow, which is another fantastic turn 1 play. It's got Suspend 2 for a green. It lets us search our library for a basic land and put into play untapped. Next up, we've got Farseek, a great turn 2 play that gets either a plains or mountain into play tapped. And then there's Rampant Growth, which can get us any basic into play tapped. Next up, there's Edge of Autumn, which can do the exact same thing, but only if we've got 4 or fewer lands, and it's also got Cycling by sacrificing a land. And then Harrow, we can cast at instant speed, and it makes us sacrifice 1 land to get 2 basics into play untapped. Next up, we're running Cultivate, which can get us 1 basic into play and 1 into our hand. And then Grow from the Ashes gets us 1 basic into play untapped or 2 if we kicked it. And finally, we've got Migration Path, which gives us 2 basics into play tapped, or we can cycle it for 2. But now that we've ramped, let's talk about some cats. So it's time for us to go on to tactic number 2, Dog's Best Friend. First up, we've got White Mane Lion, which is a fantastic card in this deck. It has Flash, and when it comes into play, we bounce a creature we control back to its owner's hand. So we can actually cast this and then have it bounce itself. Rin and Seri have, whenever you cast a cat spell, create a 1/1 white dog creature token. So essentially this is a 2-mana token generator at instant speed whenever we want. We can fill the board with more and more dogs to help us deal more and more damage with our commander. A similar card to this comes with Fleetfoot Panther, which has Flash, and when it enters the battlefield, return a green or white creature you control to its owner's hand. Now this does cost us 1 green white, so that's 3 mana in comparison to 2, but it can still be very effective. And finally, we're running Temur Sabertooth, which has pay 1 and a green. You may return another creature you control to its owner's hand. If you do, Temur Sabertooth gains indestructible until end of turn. So this can also help us bounce cheap cats back to our hand to recast for value. And we can also use this or any of these to actually save our commander in a pinch as well. Now these are great ways to make tokens, but we've got some other ways as well. So now let's move on to tactic number 3, Kittens Galore. First up, there's Cub Warden, which has Mutate, and whenever this creature mutates, create 2/1/1 white cat creature tokens with lifelink. So when we cast this spell for its Mutate cost, not only do we get a dog when it comes into play, but we also get 2 more cats. And then there's Leonin War Leader, which has, when it attacks, create 2/1/1 white cat creature tokens with lifelink that are tapped and attacking. So it's a repeatable way to make more and more cats through combat. Another way comes with Jedit Ojanin. It's got Forest Walk, and whenever it attacks or blocks, you create a 2/2 green cat warrior creature token with Forest Walk. But perhaps the biggest and quickest way to get more tokens is with Second Harvest. It says for each token you control, create a token that's a copy of that permanent. So the more cat and dog tokens that we have, the more tokens that we get. This can essentially double up a big part of our army at instant speed. But of course, there are still more cats to come. So now let's move on to tactic number 4, Cat Claws. First up, there's Sacred Cat, which is just a 1/1 with lifelink for a white, but it's also got Embalm for a white. Being able to get 2 1/1s for 1 mana is a great deal, especially when we get a dog token as well. Speaking of multiple tokens, we've also got Garrison Cat, which is a 1/1, and when it dies, we create a 1/1 white human soldier creature token. Next up, there's a Johnny's Pridemate, which is a 2/2, but it has whenever you gain life, put a ++1 counter on a Johnny's Pridemate. We've got a ton of ways to gain life in this deck, and this can get huge quickly. Another potentially big threat is a Dorn Pouncer. It's a 1/1 with double strike, but it also is eternalized for 3 white, so it comes back as a 4/4. Next up, we've got Bronzehide Lion, which has pay green-white. It gains indestructible until end of turn. And when it dies, return to the battlefield. It's an or enchantment with enchant creature you control, and pay green-white. Enchanted creature gains indestructible until end of turn. It loses all other abilities. So this can be a good way to protect one of our key creatures. And then there's Fleecebane Lion, which has Monstrosity 1 for 3 green-white. And as long as it's monstrous, it has hexproof and indestructible, so it's incredibly hard to deal with. But we can also protect ourselves with something like Set's Tiger. It has flash, and when it enters the battlefield, we gain protection from the color of our choice until end of turn. Finally, we're running Bracy Break of the Coil, which says your opponents can't cast spells during combat, and whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, go to each creature that player controls. So if we can keep getting creatures through, we can keep having our opponents send their creatures at each other. Now, we've talked about a lot of cats, but let's talk about some cats that are questionably cats. So it's time for us to move on to tactic number 5, cats. First up, there's Universal Automaton, which is just a 1/1 for 1, but it's got Changeling. And because it's got Changeling, it's every creature type at all times. So when we cast this, it's both a cat and a dog, so we get tokens for each. So for just 1 mana, we get this Changeling in play, as well as a token cat and a token dog. So we're also going to be running other Changelings with Woodland Changeling, Firebelly Changeling, and Imposter of the Sixth Pride. Again, what they do or don't do really isn't all that important, it's just that they're 2 mana Changelings, which is fantastic for this deck. 2 mana for 3 bodies is a fantastic deal. Next up, we've got Taurian Mauler, which is a 2/2 Changeling, and it says whenever an opponent casts a spell, you may put a ++1 counter on Taurian Mauler. So for 3 mana, we get 3 bodies, and one of them can get huge. And then Mirror Entity is a fantastic Changeling and has pay X until end of turn. Creatures you control have base power and toughness XX and gain all creature types. So essentially, this can pump our army and turn them all into cat dogs. So Rin and Seri's activation becomes twice as effective. Next up, there's a regular cohort, which is a 2/2 Changeling, and when it comes into play, we get another 2/2 Changeling. So for 4 mana, we're getting 4 bodies, and again, that's a fantastic deal. But how do we actually get to all these great cards? It's time for us to move on to tactic number 6, Cat Toys. First up, there's Faithless Looting, which says draw 2 cards, then discard 2 cards, and it's got flashback for 2 and a red. And then there's Tormenting Voice, which says the additional cost to cast this spell, discard a card, draw 2 cards. Thrill Possibility actually does the exact same thing, but at instant speed. Next up, there's Cathartic Reunion, which makes us discard 2 to draw 3. And then Harmonize will just straight up let us draw 3 cards for 4 mana. Next up, there's Keeper of Fables, which is a 4/5 cat that says whenever 1 or more non-human creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, draw a card. So essentially, if we can get 1 creature in on each player, then we're going to be drawing 3 cards. But we've got more ways to take advantage of the number of creatures that we have with Shamanic Revelation, Camaraderie, and Collective Unconscious. Each are going to draw us a card for every single creature that we control. On top of that, Shamanic Revelation is going to gain us 4 life for each creature that we control at power 4 or greater. And then Camaraderie gives our creatures +1/+1 until end of turn. Next up, we're going to be running Reap the Past, which says return X cards at random from your graveyard to your hand, exile Reap the Past. So this can help us get a ton of cards back and help us restock our hand. And finally, there's Signal the Clans, which is an instant that says search your library for 3 creature cards and reveal them. If you reveal 3 cards with different names, choose one of them at random and put that card into your hand, shuffle the rest into your library. So this card can help us out in a lot of situations, getting one of our best creatures into our hand. Now, we've talked a lot about our plans, but how do we throw a wrench into our opponent's plans? Let's find out in tactic number 7, If I Fits. First up, we've got Felidar Cub, which we can sacrifice to destroy target enchantment. And then there's Qasali Pridemage, which has Exalted and pay 1, sacrifice it, destroy target artifact or enchantment. Next up, there's Leonin Relic Warder, which when it comes into play, we can exile target artifact or enchantment, and when it leaves play, that comes back. But some more cats that can really help us out are Feline Sovereign and Qasali Slingers. Feline Sovereign gives other cats we control +1/+1 in protection from dogs. On top of that, whenever one or more cats we control deals combat damage to a player, we destroy up to one target artifact or enchantment that player controls. And Sully Slingers has reach, and whenever it or another cat enters the battlefield under our control, we can destroy target artifact or enchantment. So this is kind of like an Aura Shards, but just for cats. But next up, there's Crush Contraband, which says choose one or both, exile target artifact, exile target enchantment. And finally, there's Grip Swap, which is a shapeshifter spell, and it says exile target creature, its controller creates a 1/1 shapeshifter with Changeling. So because this spell is Changeling, when we cast it, we also get a cat and a dog token. Now, we've talked about throwing a wrench into our opponent's plans, but how do we actually protect our board? Let's find out in tactic number 8, Ice Sits. First up, there's Rap and Vigor, which is going to regenerate each creature that we control for just 2 mana. And then Rootborn Defenses says Populate, creatures you control gain indestructible until end of turn. So this pretty much always is going to get us a token and protect our creatures. And finally, there's Make a Stand, which says creatures you control get +1/+0 and gain indestructible until end of turn. So this is a great way to protect our board or to help us swing out. Now these spells can really help us out in a pinch, but there are other spells that can help too. So now it's time for us to move on to tactic number 9, Tap Time. First up, there's Shields of Valis Vel, which has Changeling, and creatures target player controls get +0/+1 and gain all creature types until end of turn. So for just a white mana, when we cast this, we get a cat and a dog. On top of that, our creatures are going to get +0/+1 and gain all creature types until end of turn. So this essentially doubles up the effectiveness of our commander's activated ability. We can also help our commander activate twice in a turn with something like 2 arms. It says untap all creatures you control and draw a card. This spell is actually really flexible because it can also surprise our opponents during combat too. They might try to swing out at us, and we're going to have blockers ready. Now, getting a ton of cats and dogs out is great, but how do we actually finish off our opponents? Let's find out in our final tactic, tactic number 10, Herding Kittens. First up, we've got Overrun, which is going to give creatures we control +3/+3 and trample until end of turn. This deck is great at going wide, so this is a huge boost in power. An even bigger boost, though, comes with Overwhelming Stampede. It says until end of turn, creatures you control gain trample and get +X/+X, where X is the greatest power among creatures you control. So at the very least, if our commander is in play, that's going to make it +4/+4. But we've also got some anthems that stick around though, like Dictate of Heliod and Collective Blessing. Dictate of Heliod has Flash, and creatures you control get +2/+2. So with that Flash, we can actually use this as a combat trick as well. And then Collective Blessing does this in an even bigger way by giving our creatures +3/+3. So now every single token that we create is a 4/4 instead of a 1/1. But we've also got some cats that can help us out as well, like Regal Leosaur. It has Mutate for 1 Boros, and when this creature mutates, other creatures you control get +2/+1 until end of turn. And then there's King of the Pride, which is a fantastic anthem giving other cats we control +2/+1. Jazal Goldmane, though, can make our creatures impossibly large by paying 3 white, attacking creatures you control get +X/+X until end of turn, where X is the number of attacking creatures. Again, this deck is great at going wide, so giving +10/+10 or even more is not out of the question. Now, as good as all these cards are, they're not quite as good as the Golden Pig of this deck. The Golden Pig is going to be our number 1 card out of our 99. And the Golden Pig for this deck is Regal Caracol. It's a 3/3 cat that costs 3 white, and it gives other cats we control +1/+1 in lifelink. And when it enters the battlefield, we create 2 1/1 white cat creature tokens with lifelink. So when we cast this, we get a total of 7 power worth of cats and 1 dog. And of course, that anthem effect is pumping all of our cats and giving them all lifelink. That can really help pump our team and pad our life total. The amount of value that this generates us for just 5 mana is absolutely absurd. And that's what makes it the Golden Pig. But now let's see how our deck compares in cost, so it's time for us to move on to the price breakdown. The average EDH rec deck is going to set you back $349.22. Our deck is going to be much more affordable, coming in at $49.85 or $66.03 with the commander. Again, on episodes like these, if the commander has a price over $10, its cost is excluded. Regardless, even with the commander's cost in there, it's still much more affordable than the average deck. And with all that money that you're going to be saving, let's move on to some reasonable upgrades. First up, let's add in Slate of Ancestry by taking out Tormenting Voice. Next up, let's add in Shared Animosity by taking out Overrun. And then let's add in Beastmaster Ascension by taking out Regal Leosaur. Next up, let's add in Boros Charm by taking out Make a Stand. And then let's add in Prowling Serpapard by taking out Set's Tiger. Finally, let's add in Heroic Intervention by taking out Rap and Vigor. And with that, this show has come to a close, so it's my turn to hear from you. So in the comments below, let me know if this commander is the bestest, awesomest, cutest of all time. It is. It definitely is. Anyway, comment below that. And as always, thanks again and have a good one.